So it's crucial for investigators to know the angle of attack at which the plane came out of the clouds and how fast it was going when it impacted the ground. And that combined with the explosion will help us determine, which angle and why the debris flew the way it did and why it was able to go 5 blocks and have that small piece go through the window of that diner and hit that man in the head. Now keep in mind, I can't show you the actual plane crashing because it violates the rules here. But I'm going to show you this video showing what happened 400 feet away indirectly. Now this witness video here may be the most valuable evidence so far that will help NTSB investigators of this plane crash determine how and why it hit and what the debris did and why it did what it did. So check this out. This is from Michael Hitchner.
And, yep.
Michael, move!
You could hear some of the plane parts hitting his car.
I'm calling 911.
Okay, now look in the middle of your screen there, the red barricades on the sidewalk. That is where the plane impacted the sidewalk. There's your Dunkin' Donuts, and then there's a close-up view of those red barricades. So they've been digging out that hole for the last few days. Okay, so if we do a screen grab here, you can see this is the Dunkin' Donuts right here. And then at this spot, this is where the plane had the impact. And so the plane was coming probably from this direction here a bit, because once it hit here, everything flew down this way. So a lot of people had been asking in the comments, how did that diner 4 blocks up the street have that piece fly in through the window? Well, because the plane coming in and crashing was such a force, the stuff has to go somewhere when it disintegrates. So it along with the blast too. Remember, there was that initial blast that helped propel everything. But this is where you saw all of the debris come sweeping across the Dunkin' Donuts here. And a lot of it was just kind of landing right in this general area. And so the car was sitting right here, probably right about where this white car is. And it was just waiting to turn out of there. In fact, if you look at the far right of the screen, you can see the Dunkin' Donuts and you can see the 4 letters DUNK from their sign. And there's a white car sitting there in their drive-thru. And that's when you saw all of the cars in front of it try to back out of there. Everybody's going, oh, we better hightail it out of here. And then you see these tables here at the Dunkin' Donuts. So this is where somebody else got some video as well. So let's take a look at that.
Come on, come on, go get sit in the car.
Let's go!
Okay, come on.
Let's
We cannot get out.
So a customer at the Dunkin' Donuts shot this, and you can just see that there is debris all over the place there. And luckily, none of these people had been sitting at those tables outside, because it was actually kind of cold and raining. So all of these people must have been inside. And as far as we know, there was no injuries at the Dunkin' Donuts site there. And then, an eerie question that a number of people have been asking me about this Learjet crash in Philadelphia is what happened to the bodies on board the plane? There wasn't really any mention of them or whether they found them or anything. But if you take a look around at the size of all of those pieces there, I would imagine that the body parts were probably not much bigger than any of those. And who knows, maybe some of the bodies from inside the jet are probably in that crater and they recovered them already. So here's the view the next morning on February 1st. There's your Dunkin' Donuts, and the pickup truck parked above it that you see there is where the dash cam was shot from, sort of in that area. And then on the street, you can see that looks like probably a wing right at the intersection of Rupert Street. So if we zoom into that general area here, here's where the plane impacted, right here in the sidewalk at the entrance. See by that sign over there. And so this is Rupert Street that I just mentioned. And so the wing was positioned right here, that little, if that was a piece of wing, it was positioned right here, just barely touching the crosswalk there. And of course, that's where you saw the fire engines and other emergency vehicles pretty much congregating in that spot right there. Okay, so Michael Hitchner in his car with his family was probably right around this area like this, facing like all of these cars are, getting ready to turn onto Cotman when he captured it. So remember, all of the debris came flying down the road here, and let's see if we can see that piece of wing in his video to help collaborate it. Now let's look at the slow motion version of it here. You want to focus your eyes right where that pickup truck is, up on the right lane, the sole truck right there. Watch all of the debris come raining down, and some will come sliding down the street right in front of it. So we're going to look for what stops in front of it. You can see there's a whole bunch of stuff sliding and some massively sized chunks of material coming down. But you can see the flame out right in front of the truck there, the pieces that just stopped right there. So yeah, so watch this final piece that skids to a halt, sort of in front of the pickup truck. I think that could be it. And you might recall I might have showed you some of this on my previous video on the Philadelphia Medjet crash. And so this was the NTSB examining the site at the point of impact right there. So, of course, by then, probably all of the big stuff had been pulled out of there, including probably the bodies. Because at the bottom there is where they found the flight data recorder, and then you can see the Dunkin' Donuts in the background behind the guy talking on the phone. You see it? So you can see just how far away this impact site is from that Dunkin' Donuts, and you can get a much better grip on just how much force it took to throw all of those parts that distance. And then looking at the aerial view, this is B-roll video that the NTSB shot with their drone. I was pointed this out too on the last video about how the top of that sign for the mall looks like it might have been nipped by the plane just as it was coming in to crash down, making its point of impact. You'll see it in a second here when we get a closer look of the sign from the back side of it as they rotate around the scene. See right there, looks like something tore right through the top of that sign. So I think that probably shows us the angle that the plane came in. And you see that mark on the sidewalk, almost looks like it could be a wing. It's hard to tell there. But again, you look at the size of all of the pieces. You don't see very many large sections of that plane. Now keep in mind, they've already swept a lot of the stuff up too, so there's probably a lot more debris that's been removed already. Here you're starting to see some bigger pieces. Then going back to Michael Hitchener's video, watch this. See all of the parts they're hitting. This is the other mall sign, and you could see it. So let's take a look again in slow motion. You can see all of the debris parts are about to come flying over there, and you can see sections of the sign just falling off of that sign and coming down right in the middle of the sign there. See where it's bluish? You can see the parts hitting it there and falling off. So this is not that same sign. This is the sign that's over by the Dunkin' Donuts there, which is at a different entrance, 300 feet away from the point of where the jet impacted into the sidewalk. But you could see how all of that debris came raining down. And then some people's homes within a block of there were also destroyed, most likely by the flying debris that was flaming from the initial impact and the explosion. And then again, there's the Dunkin' Donuts, and it's going to pan over to the right to show currently what it looks like where the crater is, which is right there next to that car. Almost 5 days just to get these roads reopened. And there's the impact area right there covered with water and foam from fighting the fire the night before. And so we have a chance to see it a little more clearer now. So here's the point of impact. It was just below the frame. And we're now looking up the street towards Roosevelt. And so as we move up, we're getting to be about 300 or 400 feet away. It seems like the bulk of the material sort of landed right here within that 500-foot radius or so. And so coming up right here, this is the intersection where the Dunkin' Donuts is right there. You just saw their sign at the bottom of the screen. And there's that large piece that I couldn't tell if it was a wing or fuselage or what. But that's what we saw in the Daschcam video. That's what we saw, you recall. And so there's your fire engines all kind of congregated around this point the night of the fire. And that's Rupert Street right there across from the Dunkin' Donuts. But you can see the debris still continues on down the road towards the diner. Now, on my last video here on this Philly jet crash, a lot of you left boatloads of comments about the oxygen tanks here. Many people seem to think that somehow they caught fire and exploded mid-fight, disabling the crew. That's highly unlikely. Still, it is a possibility, but probably low down on the list. I like what 7th Son 9441 said right here. Let's see, it looks like it hit the ground every 10 feet on the way to McDonald's. If the part of the regulator that hit the guy in the head in the restaurant was on that tank, I assume the regulator part was on the tank all the way down to McDonald's, and when it broke off, it gave that horizontal trajectory. So I kind of like this idea. This makes sense too. Because if we look here at the part, so this was photographed by Maya Eglin. She's a reporter who made it into the diner the next day. And this is the picture of the part that hit the guy in the head. And there's no threads on it, though, so that's the only thing. Now, it could be that there was threads here and they got ripped off when the part fell off, if indeed this came off of that oxygen tank. This might be something completely else. It could be a fitting for hydraulics on the plane. At this point, we don't really know. But it does seem logically possible, and I'll show you why. So here's the picture of the tank, the oxygen tank, as it sat on the corner outside the McDonald's, right here at the corner of Roosevelt. And it sort of looks like it's missing the attachments here, the valve and all that. And so if it indeed did come off here, it would have shot through the window of the diner and hit the guy in the head. So that is feasible. And I'll show you where it is here because it's actually pretty far away from the crash site. The crash site is right here. And as I showed you on the previous video, it's like 5 blocks down the road. It's almost a quarter of a mile and it's right here. So the oxygen tank ended up right here. See, this is where the McDonald's is on the corner of Cotman and Roosevelt Boulevard. It was right here, right on this very curve of this concrete laying right here. So yes, if the regulator came off of there at that point, it would have come over here and shot through the window. That is highly possible. So then going back to the part that Maya's holding in her hand there, let's take a look at it and compare it to other oxygen tanks. So I'm kind of looking around at similar tanks here, and I want to get a close-up of this tank because this looks very close to it. It's like an E tank. So there would be the similar part there. And again, you know, fittings are fittings. You can have different types of fittings that would screw in there. Maybe they had other things to adapt to it. Who knows? So could that be the part? It looks like, yes. It also looks like it could be, like I said before, the hydraulic part from inside the plane. Now, this is very disheartening to see right here. So you got Jeffrey Massey here is saying that he's, right here says, I have worked many 55 medical XA registered jets. So those are the Learjet 55s. And he says, and they are always in poor condition and maintenance is an afterthought. And of course, you know, the horizontal actuator is a life-limited component. Had they ignored it, it's very likely it failed. Yeah, and a lot of people also brought up the jack screw too. Yeah, because if your jack screw stops working, there goes your elevator there. So if some of you are old enough to remember, back in the year 2000, Alaska Airlines Flight 261 had this issue with the jack screw. And I remember this was all over the news at the time. And what was so unbelievably amazing about this crash is the pilots, how they tried to control this plane when the jack screw is located back up in here, caused the horizontal stabilizer here to tilt, which made the plane start to tank. But what you're going to see here was just incredible of what happened and how it started to, you can see it's going to start to descend here like this. It's going to go into a roll, and it actually inverted, and the pilots were actually flying this plane upside down for a while, but they couldn't get it to roll back over, and so it just ended up ditching into the ocean off California. The passengers must have been totally freaking out over that. 24,000 feet up, and they must have had a long time to think about their impending deaths. So we also got some comments from some very knowledgeable people, like, for example, this guy right here. He's a former Learjet employee with 15 years experience on this airframe. So he says, first of all, the decompression idea is bunk, so that means that we know it didn't suffer decompression because that would happen at a higher altitude anyway. He says right here, they hadn't even reached the pressurization portion of the takeoff checklist yet. So his suspicion right here, he's got a couple of good points to bring up. If a horizontal stabilizer out of trim or failed is plainly obvious to the pilots prior to takeoff, the yoke would feel extremely heavy in pitch axis as opposed to well balanced. He says it could have failed immediately after liftoff, but I'd expect a crash straight off the end of the departure end of the runway. But here's another one that he brings up, another great point. The aircraft are well known for flapjack attached brackets cracking. And unfortunately, Mexico isn't known for having the most stringent maintenance requirements. Here, I brought up some pictures here of possible cracks in the flap track. So what that is that's the track that the flaps move in and out of the wing on, right? And if you have cracks on it, like in this case right here, here's one of the bracket attachment points. See this right here? This is a crack right here. And when they removed the part and then started to do cleanup, you can see there's the hole that was left and the fatigue right there, the cracks in the metal. I would have to replace this whole piece. I wouldn't even feel comfortable trying to patch this one up. And so there's the new part that they put into place. So you can see what he's talking about. So if those are cracked and maybe there's some fatigue, maybe your flaps won't retract properly. And he says here, if one flap jammed and the other side retracted completely, that asymmetry is enough to veer this airplane off the runway heading. And at low altitude, this would be a monster of a problem to overcome. And he says here, the cockpit voice recorder shall tell us a lot, however. So that's what I'm waiting to hear back from the NTSB on here, is what's going on with that. So make sure you keep those questions and comments coming, people. We will get through this together. Now, if you haven't seen the video that I uploaded the other night here on this medical jet crash here in Philadelphia, check this one out up here. You don't want to miss that. That has a lot of good details. And then the other day, I uploaded this other video over here on that mid-air collision of the American Airlines jet with the Black Hawk helicopter at Reagan International Airport there in Washington, D.C. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, folks, and we will see all of you on the next one.